You can call it crafting or gambling or something else, but whatever you call the current crafting system, I've been using it a lot, and here are 9 crafting tips for a smooth SSF progression. Let's dive in. 1. Get or create a loot filter. There are plenty of sources available, and I'm currently using a tweaked version of Neversink's light filter, link in the description. A loot filter is vital in keeping relevant drops visible and hiding irrelevant gear for your character. Having one ensures you're not wasting time looking at useless gear or crafting bases, and instead focus on what you need. Editing the filter isn't super intuitive per se, but with a little bit of practice and simply reading the comments in the code, you should be fine. If there's interest in doing a video on the topic and how I edit my loot filter currently, let me know in the comments. 2. Have an idea of what your next upgrade is by taking a look at your items. As crafting currently can be scarce, like it currently is at the end of 2024, it's a good idea to only spend it on the crafting bases that will provide you the biggest upgrades rather than on gear with minimal impact. Adjacent to this, check which affixes can roll per item. I will link a website, PoE, which tells you that. First, it's of course relevant to have this knowledge because you want to avoid trying to get an affix like intelligence on a piece of gear that cannot roll intelligence to begin with. Second, affixes have tiers, and those tiers are dependent on the item level. Some tiers of affixes can only roll on item level 51 or above, for example. That's good knowledge to have when planning upgrades. Besides, if you start familiarizing yourself with these affixes and tiers now, while it is still very manageable in this state of Path of Exile 2, you're going to reap the benefits in the upcoming years. Maybe GGG will add this information in-game somehow, like Last Epoch managed to do, but as Path of Exile 1 doesn't have it either, I wouldn't count on it. 3. In line with the previous tip, as soon as you find decent base items, do not waste crafting currency the moment the item breaks. It's tempting to keep spending currency, hoping to hit that affix that you're looking for, but in reality the chances of hitting it are way too low. In SSF, you don't have the luxury until the very end game to keep spamming transmutation and augmentation orbs, so choose your crafts wisely, and the moment an affix rolls on an item that is simply not good, just do yourself a favor and abandon the project. The easiest and cheapest affixes to hit are the first 2 affixes by using a transmutation and augmentation orb. If one of those 2 affixes fail, which happens a lot by the way, the odds that the other affixes are good is incredibly low. Those initial 2 affixes should be good for the item to realistically have any future by spending more uncommon currency on it, such as Regal and Exalted Orbs. 4. Several benches are available, so make use of them in Solo Self-Found. The Salvaging bench lets you salvage gear for all sorts of currency, such as currency to add sockets and to improve the quality of gear and weapons. Sockets are great in the campaign to deal with resistances, and quality is more of a late game stat, which improves armor and weapons significantly. The Reforging bench can also be useful because it allows you to reforge 3 items of the same type and rarity into a new unidentified version. This can be used for anything almost, but the most valuable use cases I found are jewelry like rings, belts and amulets, and jewels like sapphires, because you just don't drop too many of them, so reforging makes a lot of sense. 5. Similarly to salvaging, several NPCs lets you Disenchant Gear, which again proves valuable crafting currency. This is mostly relevant in the campaign and early mapping. Later in the game, you find plenty of raw currency, reducing the need to pick up a bunch of items to disenchant. But in a League start scenario, it's a good idea to Disenchant Gear. The one caveat here is that you can also sell that same gear for gold and then use that gold at vendors to simply buy an upgrade from an NPC directly. At the moment, that is a great strategy as vendors sell plenty of upgrades, but I'm not sure this is intended, and I expect crafting during the campaign to be more viable as the early access progresses. 6. Whenever you activate a crafting currency, like an Orb of Transmutation, by right-clicking on it, the borders of the item the crafting currency can be applied to light up slightly. This way, you don't have to use regex strings or something to figure out which waystones you can apply Orbs of Alchemy to, but you simply click on the Alchemy Orb and all eligible waystones light up a little bit. I thought that was a very clever trick actually. 7. When interacting with vendors, you can Ctrl and Alt click them for various effects. In your hideout, you can Ctrl click on Doriani and he will identify all items in your inventory. It also works on the hooded one, by the way. Alt click brings up his inventory with waystones. Ctrl and Alt click brings up the Atlas passive tree so you can easily refund points. Control clicking Katsuli brings up the disenchanting menu. Alt clicking shows you his inventory so you can sell items, and Control and Alt click doesn't do anything because he is not offering 3 different services, at least for now. This works on any NPC if they offer a service, and this also works in Path of Exile 1. Talking about Control and Alt clicking, if you want to get more information about tiers and tags, you can hover over an item and hold Alt. This expands the tooltip and locks it in place. You can see a few things. On the left side of the affixes, it tells you if the affix is a prefix or a suffix. Most rare items, except jewels, can have 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes, so by checking what is already on an item, you have a bit more knowledge what happens if you use more crafting currency. On the right side of the affixes, you can see the tier of that particular affix. The higher the number, the better the tier. There's currently no knowing what the highest tier is unless you check PoE. If you keep holding Alt and hover with your mouse over the tiers, you can see the tags of the affixes. These tags are useful for crafting because essences, for example, guarantee an affix with a certain tag. By checking tags this way, you get a sense of which affixes are related to which tag, but again, PoE does a better job here for now. There's more, however. There's a small icon in the top right, which you can click, which makes the tooltip sticky, meaning you don't have to hold Alt anymore. You can now move it around, hover over everything, check out the item, etc. It's super useful stuff. 9. The value of Vaal Orbs. This is probably the most fun crafting currency we currently have, and it has various interesting effects on gear. For example, it can add implicit modifiers, it can add sockets, it can add explicit affixes, and do a lot more. Again, it is all on PoE. The main use I have for these since I've self-found is to use it on an item that I'm about to replace with something better in the hopes of a good outcome. You definitely should not use a Vaal Orb on a gear piece that you're wearing and that you need because it can completely mess up the item. You're not really using Vaal Orbs for many other purposes in SSF until much later on, when you can also use them on unique items to increase or decrease the value of the range of the affixes by plus or minus 22%, I think it is even. So on this shield with 50 spirit on it, I used a Vaal Orb and it rolled the 20% increase for a 60 spirit shield. It's good to know that before corrupting, the Vaal Orb applies random rolls to all of the affix values, as if you are using a Divine Orb first, meaning that the original stats and rolls on the item most likely don't matter before corrupting it. It's not 100% clear if this always happens, but the idea is that before corrupting you don't need perfect rolls on the item. Just corrupt it with a Vaal Orb and see what happens. Vaal Orbs have many other uses. Zizran made a video about the whole thing yesterday. I will link that video as well so you can have a look at his video. I think he does a really great job in explaining what the Vaal Orb can be used for. So yeah, it's much better than what I would do. I just really like the currency, so I put it at the last tip. I hope you have a good time watching this video. Let me know what you think. Also let me know if you have any suggestions. Subscribe and like for more PoE solo self-found content. Thanks for watching and making it to the end. Love you all. See you soon. Bye bye.